What's up, guys? On this interview, I'm going to answer the question, what are some red flags or big turnoffs for you during an interview? Number one, somebody that's late. It kind of goes without saying, but nowadays we do a lot of our interviews and recruiting over Zoom because of simplicity, which I like. However, doing it over Zoom isn't an excuse to show up late. You would never show up late to an in-person interview. You're taught to show up at least 15 minutes early for that. You don't have to sit on the Zoom bridge for 15-30 minutes before your interview starts, but definitely hop on 5-10 minutes ahead of time. Make sure your camera works, make sure your audio works, make sure you don't need to update Zoom. If somebody hops on early and finds out there's an update, their camera's not working, there's something, and they call in and tell us, I'll reschedule an interview for that person. If somebody hops on 3 minutes late and they're like, oh, technical difficulties, I won't let them into my meeting room and I won't reschedule that person, because guess what? That's how you're going to treat customers. If I have a choice between somebody that's going to be proactive versus reactive, I'm going proactive every single time. So number one, it's simple, but don't be late. Number two, don't show up to an interview unprepared. Again, sounds simple and silly, but a lot of people do it, especially now because recruiting is so competitive and it's so instant with Indeed, Zip, LinkedIn, all these different websites. I assume any candidate I'm talking to is getting tons of phone calls about their resume. I tell people when we hire them, I assume that you went on a bunch of interviews before you accepted this position, because you could get 10 interviews lined up in a matter of 2-3 days if you've got a good resume. And if you're not getting calls left and right, I probably don't want you because you're probably not that good of a candidate. But when you're getting 10 phone calls and setting up 10 different interviews in 3-4 days, you gotta make sure you're doing just a teeny bit of homework so you know what you're walking into. I don't need somebody to know the whole history of the company, but I don't know a single company that when you book an interview won't send you a confirmation email, and in that email will have their website, their social media. Take 2 to 5 minutes to look over that stuff. So when you sit down to an interview, you're prepared, you at least have an idea about the company, a little bit about the role that they're looking to fill. Obviously, you're gonna have questions. They're not gonna have all the details online, but know what you're walking into, be prepared for that interview. The third thing that's a huge turn off for me is just a bad attitude, low energy. There's a great expression I like to use: success leaves clues, so does failure. When somebody from me has low energy and they're talking poorly about past positions, they're going to be talking badly about their next position. So even if the last position or the last few positions didn't work out, if you're bad-mouthing an ex-employer, big turn off for me. You could have a job that you hate and still speak well about them, and that's gonna press me a heck of a lot more than you just talking poorly about any kind of job. If your job was to make 300 phone calls a day, I don't care. Hop onto the interview and say, yeah, it was a great learning experience. It required a really good work ethic. It helped me develop some communication skills, but ultimately not what I was looking for long-term, so that's why I'm not looking. I have people that go through that same job and they're like, it was awful. I was on the phones for 8 hours a day and da-da-da-da-da. Again, I'll take that first guy 10 times out of 10. A bad attitude, huge turn off for me. So those are 3 things that for me, won't hire those people.